Having said that, we have a special guest with us today, Jay. He is working at PwC and has worked with Deloitte as well in the past. He was associated with Suncor Energy as well in the past, and he's a fellow Queen's MBA alumni from 2012. Did I get that right, Jay? 13?
13.
13. He's a fellow
Yeah.
Queen's MBA alum from 2013. And today we are going to be talking about mostly Jay. He's going to be talking about consulting and everything that you need to know about consulting. So without, further ado, I'm going to pass it over to you, Jay, for sharing your thoughts, experiences, and then just, kicking it off.
Yeah, I'll start with a quick background about myself, an introduction for the benefit of everybody. Um, so I'm a mechanical engineer by education. After my engineering degree, I kind of took on the first job, which was in mechanical engineering domain. So I started my career as a component design engineer. So my first job was to design the small brackets that are part of the interiors of aircrafts. So I started my Airbus was my client. So started working for them, then slowly transitioned into designing components for subsea and oil and gas companies. So I started it in a consulting company as well. So had the privilege of working across different clients, different geography. So then slowly transitioned into IT, started building real-time drilling monitoring applications. Did some drilling component analysis, reliability analysis as well as part of that journey. So then I was figuring that my career was going super deep, so wanted to go for breadth, and I joined. So I came to Canada for my MBA. So did my MBA at Queen's, graduated in 2013. My first job in Canada was with Deloitte. I will share my experience if people are interested going through the interview process. And then after a couple of years at Deloitte, went to the industry, worked at Canadian Pacific Railway as an enterprise program manager for an enterprise analytics implementation. Then from there on, moved to Suncor, similar experience, starting as an internal consultant. We built analytics strategy, data strategy for Suncor, and then started implementing enterprise level analytics programs. Then joined PwC in 2020 of January 2020. Um, started um, started playing a senior role and developing the team out west here, focused on sales, business development, as well as delivery. So late last year, due to leadership changes, I took on a bigger responsibility of leading the Western Canadian team. So now I'm the director who's leading Western Canadian analytics operations, which includes Vancouver, Victoria, Calgary, and Edmonton. And I'm based out of Calgary, by the way. Happy to dive deep into any of these experiences. One of the things I will tell the group, this particular group, is when I was a student and I was graduating from Queens in 2013, I was new to the experience of looking for a job in a foreign market as well. So in India, when I first graduated my undergrad, 1 year before graduation, I had a job. Campus interviews are very prominent there. My first job was cakewalk. All I had to do was have good grades and crack the interview. I was through, right? So here, it was a very different experience. It took almost 6 months for me to understand the game of networking. Um, I'll keep going back to the two themes that I throughout any conversation that we'll have today. I think is one thing I learned to do was use the resources that I had at hand and that was available to me. Second was not being afraid to reach out to people and talk, right? And that's exactly what the Fresh Hub platform was built on. I think that's what it facilitates for everybody to pursue what they want. So I'll stop there. Happy to answer any questions, particularly about the journey that I've been through, um, the work that we do today as part of PwC, or any other question about job search, career planning, career development. Happy to help in any way I can.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Jay. It's pleasantly surprising to know that you and I have had so far very very similar experiences. When I was working at Michelin, straight out of engineering from India, I was in a technical job. I was making truck and bus tires, and the reason I left Michelin was I was going too deep into technical, understanding the performance metrics, understanding the fx forces, the fy forces, traction, acceleration. And then instead of looking at beautiful cars, I was looking at tires. So that's when I figured out that I need to get out of Michelin. And then I came to Canada, pursued my MBA at Queens, and then was looking at exploring consulting opportunities. But that's not what I wanted to share. I'm curious to understand that when that transition happened, when you did finish your MBA from Queens and you were exploring consulting opportunities, what did that journey look like? How did that exploration happen? How did you come to terms to really understand that consulting is what you want, and what are some of the steps that you undertook to get into consulting? I had a similar journey. After MBA, I explored consulting. I wanted to get into consulting, and Jan 2021, I got into Deloitte, only to realize that I wasn't the right fit for consulting, and it's a different story. But that exploration phase required a lot of conversations with people, understanding which practice that you were looking for. And I know that you joined the technology. um, David, could you please mute the participants, please? And enforce that facility that when they join, they are on mute. Thank you. So yeah, what I wanted to understand is that what that journey looked like, and what are some of the steps that you undertook back in 2013 to really understand that consulting is the right fit for you. That's where you want to be, and also look at from a practice point of view.
Yeah, great question, right? So the first 5 years when I was working in India, I was in a consulting company. I was in a professional services firm, right? Like when I started, I was an engineering consultant, eventually became a technology consultant, but this was all with the same company. So I was no stranger to a client service scenario, right? When I came for my MBA, that was my plan, right? Like what did I want to do after MBA? I was like, yeah, I have a strong consulting background. That's what I'll build on top of. But when I was going through the MBA itself, I started realizing there were more options I had than I originally imagined, right? So I kind of got distracted, understood, hey, there is more than I thought. I started looking at um, technology implementation jobs. I was looking at marketing jobs, sales jobs. Didn't even know what it takes, but started building all of those in my wannabe list, right? Like that's one thing I really did well, is like I had a list of companies that I targeted, and then started networking. Of course, this didn't start day one, but eventually I learned my lesson. Come the list of target companies, and then the contacts that I had, and I started tracking them, right? So over time, I figured I was all over the place. So I started with like Bell was in my list, Bank was in my list, like everything under the sun was in my list, PNG, you name it. So given my engineering background, I had a bunch of engineering companies or engineering related companies in my list, and then banks for no reason, right? And then technology companies were in my list. So I was all over the place. Then one fine day I decided, and there was like I said before, one of the things I did well, again realized after 5 6 months of this journey and then did well, was use the resources that was um in my avail. Like I went to my career coach every single week, and I said, hey, I need to understand, I need to figure this out. I cannot have a list of 60 companies in my target list and expect to network deep into all of them, right? So went through that exercise of helping that getting help from the mentors to say, hey, I have this list. Does this make sense? And they were like, no, this is too long. You got to narrow down. You got to narrow down, right? And eventually, I came back to square one, which narrowed it down to consulting. Hey, you've had a diverse background, and you got to focus on consulting, right? Sorry, was there a question?
No, I think
Okay.
we yeah. Go ahead,
Um,
please.
so the then eventually I figured the consulting that I'm used to is going to take me to some extent, but I need to understand what the requirements are for Canada and how consulting is done here, right? So then I started putting myself through different sessions that'll inform me on what is required, and then started talking to people who are who are going through that journey themselves, was been through a similar journey as myself, who are in consulting. Like then I figured um, I started getting answers to the question of what does it take, right? Once I had that figured out, then I started doing like to your some of the posts you address this case competitions. So I started
I think by mistake you went on mute, Jay.
okay. Looks like I was muted. Um, so I started narrowing it down to say what consulting I want to do, and then started developing the skills, started articulating my what I bring to the table um, as well. So started refining my resume based on that. Started preparing an elevator pitch and started preparing myself for those um, consulting interviews I'll have like 6 months down the line.
Wow. So, a lot of steps to really set yourself to understand that, consulting first was the right fit. And then, really understand what are some of the steps that you needed to undertake to be a good potential candidate in consulting. So I think, that discovery phase from narrowing down from 60 plus employers, PNG, marketing, technology companies, consulting companies, and then coming down to consulting, and then understanding that, okay, taking part in case competitions, reaching out to your networking contacts, asking specific questions on consulting, um, you know some of the other things that would set you up for consulting. So it's an ongoing process, but specifically in terms of skills, you mentioned something that what does it take. If you could expand a bit more for people who want to understand what does it take to be in consulting or to be a consultant.
Right. Um, the typical consulting answer, it depends, right? Depends on what kind of consulting you want to do. Consulting has consulting or big four consulting. There are different levels. I'm pretty sure a lot of you might be aware of it. So there are pure play tier one consulting, as we call it, like BCG, McKinsey's of the world, Bain Consulting. They form like pure play consulting arena, if you will. So what all they do is um, there's a hand raised. We'll come to you in a minute. So what they do is like pure play. There's something wrong with my organization, or I want to get from A to B. Um, so management consulting. There is something that needs to be fixed, or the organization requires a transformation, or looking to acquire a company. Like major step an organization is willing to take or preparing to take. They want the right set of expertise of people who can come in and consult them to say this is how you do it, and actually sometimes guide them along that major step, right? And eventually also help them to build that muscle memory in the organization to say we have done this one time, but this is what it takes to sustain what we have done and leave, right? So typically these are skill sets any organization wouldn't want to build within their organization because it's a one-time investment, it's a major step, it's not day-to-day operations. If it was day-to-day operations related thing that they want help on, they would go to the market and hire, right? Like that's when any company would hire a consultant. So that said, the next step is Big Four consulting. What we do is like we do a lot of strategy consulting and some implementation as well. So then there are next step of consulting companies like Accenture's, IBM's of the world, or boutique consultants, like for example, oil and gas consultants, specific consultants. They're really good at a particular thing, and they do implementation of that work as well. And then we also have um, the bottom layer where pure play implementation consulting companies. All they do is implementation. You tell them exactly this is how you do it, and then they execute it for you. There could be cost advantage involved there. So based on which level of consulting company you're looking at, the skill sets differ. At the same time, there are different pillars of consulting as well. There is technology consulting, there is operations consulting, there's human capital consulting, there is a specific set of like a niche consulting somebody can do. Depending on which one you're focusing on, you need to have that particular expertise as well. If there is a technology consulting you're looking for, then you need to have some background in technology so that you can advise somebody. So the other, all you're doing in consulting is advisory, right? Like you're telling somebody what to do or doing it for them. For that, you need to have a background or experience in building that particular area, right? So depending on, so for example, if I have to take what does it take for PwC data analytics group, I would say typical consulting skill sets like running workshops, understanding client requirements, gathering data in some shape or form, following a framework while doing this, or the understanding of the right framework to apply for a particular problem. So basically what you're doing is problem solving in consulting, right? So applying proven methodologies to solve a problem. So that skill set with, for my team, having a data and analytics background in a particular area of data or analytics. Does that answer your question, Abhishek?
It does. And thank you for that level of detail on, that differentiation that exists between the MBBs, the big fours, the boutique consulting firms, as well as, the pillars, the different pillars that exist. And accordingly, you need to have a different skill set, technology versus strategy versus human capital. The skills and the competencies required, differ. I do have, questions to go a little bit deeper, but Arpan, I see that, you've got your hand raised. Please, come off mute and ask the question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If we want to take up the questions later on, then we can do that also.
No, absolutely. Let's make this an interactive session. Go ahead with your question. I, have my questions on the sheet in front of me. I can ask them. Yeah.
Okay. Let me just lower my hand first. Okay. Or hi, Jai. Yeah. Let me just switch on my video. Hi, Jai.
Hey.
So I have a specific question regarding regarding the networking side of it. Like when you did your MBA, so you had experience and you had a local education, I would say country education, what market needs, basically somebody locally trained. You have that, all the things, but you still had your fair share of struggles, maybe initially, to strike a mark in the market. And then, as you explained very nicely, that you have to go through a lot of, kind of a thought. You have to think through that what will be your strategy to go forward. Is it a networking, or is it a specific skill that you have to go through, or you have to do some different strategies or not? So my question basically is, when you were doing this networking exercises, and I'm assuming that when you got your first job out of now, please correct me if I'm not wrong, and don't take it offensively. I'm just assuming here. When you got your first job after MBA, it probably came through your networking exercise as well. When you got your first shot to meet with an interviewer, and then you demonstrate your knowledge, and then they kind of impressed with you, and then they offered you an opportunity. But to reach that point, what will be your suggestion for someone how to do a networking exercise in these places. Because as you know, LinkedIn is open to all. And most of the people who reach out to you, so until unless there is a common goal, like you are a VP of somewhere and the other person is VP of somewhere, we have a common goal to achieve a business objective. Yes, we will network. That we will call as a network. But let's say if somebody randomly sends you a connection request, the end goal be maybe after 3 months or 4 months down the line, he will ask that what it will take for me to come into your company or for come into your team. And that's the hard truth that you also know, and everyone knows that's the end goal that probably they will look for, because you don't know the person, and he's sitting maybe 1,000 miles away from you. So what will be your recommendation, how somebody will approach this whole networking exercise so that to gain trust of the other person, that not every connection request sent is a job hunting exercise. Sometimes you want to learn from the person, just want to extend your friendship to someone because we are in a different country. We want to know more people and all those kind of things. So what will be your recommendation? And yes, and some point of time, there will be more professional gains as well, that you help me and I help you, something like that. So what will be your recommendation on that?
Yeah, there are a couple of things that you already answered your own question, actually. Um, and I'll start with share my experience of how I got the first job, right? Um, I did get my first job through networking. I'll burst one of the myths that's a common practice is the senior person won't talk to a junior person looking for a job. I met one of the partners at Deloitte. I still go through that coffee shop every day when the office was open, or now. The real coffee shop where I met him as a complete stranger. I wrote him a note. He was open to meeting me. Um, and then we had a 20 minutes, like 30 minutes meeting, 20 minutes, the meeting ended. At the end of the 20 minutes, he said, I think you'll be a great addition to my team, right? But I'll also tell you that meeting, if that meeting would have been my first meeting, I wouldn't have gotten a job, right? Before that, I met about 100 people. I'm not even exaggerating here. I would have met 100 to 150 people in person, would have had like 200 plus calls, which led me there, which prepared me for that one meeting that got me the job that I wanted, right? And then you also mentioned a key point about looking at networking as a means to build a larger network, not just for a job. So it's tricky when you are an international student looking for a job. Probably a lot of the people in this list can um, resonate with me. So 2012 is when I came for my MBA to Canada, May 1st, 2012. I still remember the date. So when I was planning for my MBA in India, the conversion rate, I'm talking about practical problems here, we all have this. The conversion rate from Canadian dollars to Indian rupees was like 45 rupees per Canadian dollars. But when I was doing my course, it went up to 53. What that means is like every single dollar I'm spending here, I have to spend 7 more rupees that I had originally planned for. So I was going through all of that, right? Like I've worked there for 5 years, but I've given up everything that I had, all my savings. On top of that, I've accumulated close to $50,000 of loan here. The loan was in India that comes along with a 14% interest rate at that time, right? So all of this pressure done, I cannot, in the background, when I'm reaching out to people, I cannot say, hey, I don't want a job. I want to be friends with you. Not really. In the back of your mind, you have that objective going on. Hey, everything that I'm doing has to lead me to a job. So it's okay to have that objective in your back of your mind. But the art of networking is not showing that desperation out to the other person you're reaching out to, right? I do this all the time. Um, if somebody says, I've actually gotten, like, I'm not even exaggerating here, like a month ago I got a LinkedIn message saying, hey, I'm looking for a job. I used to work for PwC India. This is my resume. Here we go. That's it. No context, nothing. I don't know this person. So then I was like, what do I do? So I ignored that person. But the inner self, like the person, I put this in context and said, hey, I might have done this in the past to somebody. Maybe not the later part when I learned what networking is, but in the first few months, I might have done this to somebody. And somebody told me this is not the way to do networking. So why don't I take this upon me and start networking with people who I don't know?
He did mention that his internet is a little weak.
Okay. Yeah, I was just trying to figure out that whether my internet has gone down.
Now, um, yeah, we'll give him a couple of minutes. But to your question, Arpan, like, I can pitch in as well. I absolutely had no experience on consult. Yeah, he's back. Okay, are
I'm
you back,
sorry.
Jay? Yes. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
back.
I'm gonna cut my video to not.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. So where did you guys lose me?
Uh, I guess you were saying
Teaching the opposite person
right.
networking.
Okay, yeah. There was this person who reached out to me. So I took it upon me. I accepted her invitation to talk to her. First thing I told her was, I'm not going to give you a job. I'm not even going to consider you for a job because there is not a fit. But this is the valuable lesson I'm going to give you. This is not the way to network. Okay. So then what is the way to network? You asked me that question too. So I'd share my experience of what it is. So originally I was getting frustrated about the same concept, Arpan, reaching out to people who I don't know. These people are strangers. Why are they gonna respond to my message? Why are they gonna help me get a job? What's in it for them? The exact reason why I'm in this forum today. To be honest, Abhishek reached out to me saying, hey, I have this startup. Can you help me? David eventually explained what his vision was. So, why did I choose to spend 2 hours of my day? You can still hear me, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, why did I spend 2 years of my busy day to help everybody? Because this is the exact journey a lot of us have been through, not just immigrants. This is the name of the game, right? You graduate here. This is how Canadian market works. You go look for a job through networking. Why? As an employer, as somebody who can give a job right now, why can't I just get applications, put people through a competitive process, and hire? Eventually, the success rate of retention, working together, and winning together is much higher if you know the person before you hire, right? So this market, this country values the process of networking. So you get to know the person, at least to some extent, about the professional side of the person before you hire that person, right? So that's why networking is important. In my experience, I started by sending random messages to people. Hey, I'm a student in Queen's University. I found your profile interesting. Can we talk? I've had around 40% success rate, right? Like usually I went with a safer group, like my alumni, people from the same city as I was, people who are mechanical engineer who are in consulting, picked some kind of commonality with people and started reaching out to them, right? And that had a higher rate of success. So then started going out of my comfort area and started addressing that, right? So slowly I understood people were more willing to talk to me than I originally imagined. So in that process, not only I got to know a lot of people, um, they also taught me at least one thing new, probably how to network or probably what not to do, right? I started treating this as a game, about setting targets for myself to say, okay, this week I'm going to meet at least 5 people. I used to go to Toronto every single week after a point to say, I'm going to meet at least 3 people in person, at least 5 people in person. Then I started doing this. And then that became like up to like 10 people I was meeting in Toronto in a particular weekend. So that started as I started um, playing this game, if you will. Of course, I will have an undertone of job, but I also started knowing how to start a conversation. I was not shy to start a conversation. I was not shy to know more about that person, right? So that's how it evolved. And the only way to learn this game is to actually do it. It's like swimming, it's like biking. You learn it by doing it. Does that answer your question, Arpan?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm myself in a consulting space already. So yeah, I was just trying to improve how things should. You are such a senior resource of person, so that's why definitely your experience really helped me enhance my approaches as well. So thank you very much. It does answer my question, Jay. Thank you.
Yeah, if I have to be really, really blunt here, it's like speed dating, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't directly ask that person like first meeting to say, hey, can we get married, have 3 kids? It's about getting to know that person, you assessing that person, and that person getting to know you, and slowly things build up, and you'll get there.
Thank you for sharing that, Jay. While you were gone, I thought, I'll hijack, this conversation. So I was, offering my own experiences, and what I was looking to say is that when I started networking, the first point of contact, would be the Queen's alumni. That's a safe space to start. Queen's helps Queens. That's a safe space, like you mentioned. You start there, you understand, what are the nuances, what are the questions to be asked, how to do networking, and there are people who are willing to help, like you were willing to help someone who didn't do networking the right way. Then when you have enough conversations, what is the right approach. You refine the approach, that okay, you send a message, hope you're well, I'm a student at Queen's University, this is what I'm looking for. You're just not direct with the ask. So that's refining the approach. And then the third thing, as per my experience over the last 18 months, is what I've realized is that look for that thing that that the opposite person can resonate with. I reached out to you in hopes of thinking that you would resonate with this cause and you would be willing to help me in my cause. And it worked out, it clicked. To give you another example, a couple of months ago, I was exploring the field of talent management, and I reached out to this managing director at Verity International, and I told her that, hey, I'm exploring opportunities in talent management. This is what I know. This is what I want to do. Would you be willing to have a conversation with me? And we spoke. That conversation led to an interview, and that interview then eventually turned into an informal mentee mentorship relationship, and now we connect every month for 1 hour and discuss everything about talent management, right? So it's because of that curiosity and because of that common link on talent management, I was able to get her attention. So I think it's a stepped process where first you start by reaching out to people. You ask questions that you feel is right, not right, and you get some advice from the opposite person. You refine your approach, and then you just know what are some of the messages that you need to send, and what are some of the points or topics that you need to address to get the opposite person's attention. So having said that, are there any other questions that you would like to ask Jay? Anyone? You can raise your hand. You can send me a direct message.
Yeah, no question is a bad question. Um, I want this to be as interactive as possible. Yeah, we do have a couple of hands raised.
All right, I failed to see who raised their hands first, but I'm gonna go with Aswath.
Okay, thanks, Jay. Thanks for your time. Uh, Shifting on a topic of networking, it was a wonderful discussion. What is a typical project for you related to analytics? Like, what are the ins and outs? Like, uh, how does the value translate from the your client to the work that you do to how you hand off the project? Can you speak a little bit about the data analytics space that you are in?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, like I said before, clients usually hire us to solve a particular problem, right? Given where we are in this analytics spectrum or this consulting spectrum, we tend to do a lot more strategy work than implementation work. In the analytics space, we cover the whole data value chain, like all the way from data ingestion, data management, data governance, business intelligence, data warehousing, all the way to machine learning, AI development for our clients. So strategy for all of this and implementation of all of this, right? So I'll give you one example of a strategy project and one example of an implementation project. So strategy project could be anywhere from the company is going through a massive digital transformation, or they want to go through a digital transformation, conducting workshops across the organizations, different pillars to understand what their expectation is from the transformation, understanding what the goals for the transformations are, and also um, actually laying out the different goals and bringing it together and solutioning what um, the potential solution could be. Could be a combination of technology, people, process that'll make that transformation happen. So laying that out um, from a current state standpoint, where they are at, assessing current state, and also laying out what the target state is, and eventually building a roadmap of how to get from current state to target state, and if the engagement permits, also implementing that roadmap. So that's what a typical strategy project would look like, right? Throughout the process, we do a number of workshops with different stakeholders, um, do executive communications along the way to make sure we are on track. We're not completely off of what they originally asked for, and eventually building that roadmap that aligns with the organization's needs. That's a strategy example. For the implementation example, yeah, there'll be like we're doing one right now where a company wanted us to build a particular sandbox environment on the cloud, and then also implement 10 pilot AI use cases for them. So we started with understanding current state systems architecture, proposed a sandbox architecture for them, understanding what AI models they want to build. So understanding different components, different data needs, different AI and machine learning needs, process power, networking, all the details, laying that out, and then proposing a target state architecture once we had alignment on that, actually implemented the platform for them, and eventually we'll be building those 10 use cases on the platform as well. So use case by use case, we're doing it in 3 pods. So we'll have 3 pods working parallelly to build those 10 use cases in parallel. This would go on for like 10 to 11 months, and then after we are done, we'll eventually hand off the models that we have built through knowledge sharing sessions. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Just one follow-up question to that. So, assuming that you build the 10 pilot AI models, how would you ensure that the people in the company, the clients, are able to carry forward that project because they need to have that skill set of understanding the model, right? If there are any further improvements or day-to-day modifications that they need to do, how would you ensure that?
Sorry, can you repeat that question again? Sorry.
So if when
What
you're
modifications are we talking about?
when you're handing over an AI model, like, how would you ensure that your clients has the skill set to continue to monitor the project apart from, say, I know you do workshops. Apart from the workshops, is there something else that you would do to ensure that the project is still in production?
Usually, it's pretty prescriptive, right? How they want us to hand it off. Like if they don't have, so um, the couple of ways we handle this. So during our current state workshop, we'll understand the organization's capabilities. We'll highlight um, lack thereof during the current state workshop to say, hey, you don't have the capabilities to take over from us. Do you want some kind of a hypercare after this where you're building your capability? Or sometimes we also provide upskilling as a service. So we put some of the some of those practitioners who will eventually take over through the upskilling projects to say you can look at, like, you can be part of this as we are building this and eventually take over. If they don't have the foundations for it, we put them through a training program and get them upskilled as well. So there are multiple ways. It depends on case by case, but there are options to make them take over. In some cases, we get into a managed service contract where we manage the models that we built over time, manage it for model drift, concept drift over time to make sure the models perform at the levels, the intended levels.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Jay, for your answer.
Awesome. Ankur, I see you have your hand up. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Thanks, Abhishek. And hi, Jay. Thanks for sharing your insights and journey with us. I personally believe that coming to a new country and starting a professional career, it's itself is a life-changing opportunity. Like it's a different journey in itself. And there's so many things that you have to adapt to and you have to change about yourself in order to be like when you adapt to new situations, you become more familiar to them, and then you kind of create an environment where you are more required by the organizations. So I really wanted to know about the changes you made to your personality, about your soft skills, or maybe I don't want to go about the hard skills, but yeah, definitely about the soft skills that made you the right candidate for the organizations, and that actually set up for a success here in Canada.
Sounds good. No, that's a great question, right? One of the first things that came to my mind when I came to Canada for the first year or first month or so was, why did I sign up to such an expensive program? But the value that I got from that program is exactly what you asked for, Ankur. The soft skills. Queen's program is designed in such a way that it's a team-based program. So we fought, we were locked into a room as to produce results. So I learned it the hard way. I had the privilege of learning through the program itself. That said, was that everything? Not really. And is that the only way to learn all these soft skills? Not really, right? The first thing I learned, one of the for networking especially, which I had, which proved to be successful eventually, is not being self-centric. When you're interviewing, when you're networking, when you're talking to people, one of the first things I learned is like not everything is about yourselves. Hey, I want a job, give me a job. If you just keep focusing on what you want, the other person is not going to be interested in you. Okay, it has to be a two-way conversation. You first start by understanding what the other person has, do a little bit of research about their background, understanding what they bring to the table. And then if you ask questions about them, they will start asking questions about you, and you'll start building a proper relationship, right? That's one of the first things I understood. And then the second thing is basic stuff like not interrupting when somebody's talking, being polite, and um, being nice to them, right? Some people, believe it or not, are going to be harsh to you during this journey. Some people are going to be blunt. to you and say, hey, this conversation is not adding any value to me. Sorry, I gotta go. And they will just leave on your face. You gotta be open to accepting all of that. Not everybody is gonna be the same to you. Not everybody is gonna be polite to you. So accepting that networking is not gonna be easy, but still it's gonna eventually be is gonna be proof. It's gonna be helpful for you. Accepting that truth is going to help make networking a lot more easier journey for you, right? Like I've had people who told me who like, hey, you're an MBA, why are you talking to me? Just go apply for a loan, start your own business, right? And then some people are like, straight up, they show up for the meeting and then they ask me, why am I talking to you? What's in it for me, right? What's in it for me if I get you a job? I'm like, okay, explain this is what in it for you. Eventually, you build a network, it's good for both of us, blah, blah, blah. And then even if they're not convinced, sure, then politely say, okay, if you're not convinced, I'm not going to waste more of your time. Thanks for whatever time you've already given me. Ciao, right? So it's understanding that not everybody's going to be the same. You're not going to benefit from every single conversation. Some people are going to be very, very nice to you. They're going to encourage you, but you're not going to get anything out of that meeting. Those are going to happen too. So you're investing time knowing all this could happen. So that level of maturity is one of the things I learned by networking more, right? Even after I got a job, I didn't stop networking because of that. Believe it or not, every single job that I've had in Canada has been through my network. I've had some interviews by applying online, but every single job that I accepted was through my network. And I've made significant number of hires through network too.
Does that answer
Thanks.
your question, Ankur?
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that, Jay. And I always believe that experiences, both good and bad, have a role to play in our lives. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Awesome. I know, Zia, you had your hand up. Do you still have a question to ask?
Thank you for noticing that.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to ask about the interview process to the consulting jobs. If you can share anything on that sphere.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are two types of hiring that happens in any consulting firm, right? One is campus recruit, the other one is experience hire. Okay. So campus recruitment works slightly different than experience hire. So campus recruitment typically, so every consulting firm works with a bunch of universities and they have a campus recruitment process where you get to apply. Your career center will give you a notice ahead of time. You get to apply, and then based on the resume and then your cover letter, the company is going to invite you for a campus recruitment process. So typically, all campus recruitment processes have a case interview. What a case interview is, like I said before, consulting is all about problem solving. And in any problem solving, as you all may know, getting to the answer is less important than the methodology or the process of how you got to the answer. So case interview tests you on that skill about, are you methodical? Are you following the right approach to solving a problem than just getting right to the answer, right? In real life, in any consulting engagement, the clients are going to be judging you on that too. So you would be much more comfortable if a consultant comes and tells you, hey, this is why I'm doing this. I'm going to follow steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 to get to your answer. Then you go to a client and say, hey, pay me $1 million. I'll go back, give me all the information. I'll go back, process it, come back with you an answer in 10 days. That's not how real world works either. So that's the first step. They put you through case interview. So they'll give you like questions like how many coffees are consumed in Toronto. That's an example that Abhishek posted on LinkedIn. It could be like, hey, how many phone calls are made in Canada per day? It could be those abstract questions, because in real life as well, the the problem that a client is going to ask you is going to be most of the time abstract as well. You're not going to have enough details to solve it. It's going to be, you're not going to have all the answers. It's not going to be this abstract, but it's going to be, there are going to be uncertainties in the questions that are being asked. Hey, I want to solve 10 problems. These are the descriptions of the 10 problems I have to solve. Come in and solve it for us. So then your methodology that you're deriving has to be, like the proposing has to be, okay, first I'll understand what the problem is. I'll ask you these questions. Then you actually gather more information, and then you ask your question in a methodical way, and then you arrive to an answer, right? So is the process. That's what case interviews are. And then depending on the group you're applying for, if you're applying for human capital consulting, if you're applying for, let's say, technology consulting or operations consulting, depending on that, there will be a technical interview or experience interview where they will actually assess you on the background that's required for the job. And then there's typically a behavioral interview and then a partner interview in the end. Okay, this is the process for campus interview. Experience hire is not too different, except that the case interview sometimes is optional. And the technical interview will be, there'll be more expectations for your technical interview that you have the right background, you have the right experience and stuff. Does that help, Zia?
Awesome.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Awesome. Go ahead, Shruti. You have your hand up. You're on mute.
Am I audible?
Yes.
So, hi Jai, that was really very, like something that I was looking for as an answer, but there is a follow-up question to that. So basically what you said that, when a consulting firm it hires from a campus, their people, the students, they are given these case things to solve in. But is it possible to get into consulting for a person who is a generalist and not a specialist and who is an experienced professional? So a person who has had, like varied experiences, and if that person wants to get into a consulting firm, like what would be the approach that you would suggest?
The short answer is yes. In fact, if you are a generalist, if you have a diverse background, consulting is the best place to start. Okay. That said, it depends on the level you're applying to as well, right? Any consulting firm is hired to bring in expertise. So the more senior you are expected to have a particular expertise, right? But that said, in consulting, the biggest perk you're going to have working for a consulting firm is that variety. You'll have the opportunity to work with multiple clients, multiple geography, multiple industries, or multiple skill sets too sometimes. It provides that variety. So to your question about what do you need to get into consulting, the diversity itself is a selling point. That you bring that diversity, you've had experience working in different places, different diversity, if especially for junior roles like consultant, senior consultant levels, if you've had that diversity, then the organization has the flexibility of staffing in multiple places. You're more employable, if you will, at the junior levels. So the other thing that's a nuance that's important to understand in any consulting firm is, at least the ones that focus on strategy, big four consultings or tier one consulting, delivery and sales happens in the same group, right? So the more junior you are, your key metric that you'll be measured on, your performance is measured on, is your utilization. how much hours are you billed to your client? So how busy can you be? So the more diverse skill sets you have, you can get staffed on multiple engagements. You can do project management hat. Sounds good. There is a project management ask for this particular client. Oh, you can do, you can be a junior person who can run workshops for an operations consulting engagement. Great. We'll staff you there too. So your employability is much higher if you have that diverse background, right? But over as you grow in the organizations, you will develop an expertise over time, and you'll also learn your focus will turn from delivery to sales, business development.
Perfect. Perfect. I can, I mean, just to sum up, I mean, you meant to say that if you have a diverse experience, you are a good fit for a consulting firm. So, in all. So, Jai, I mean, I would just sum up, like for a person like me who has, like a blend of both technology and sales, I should still consider applying for, a consulting firm. Is it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So like I said before, there are two things. If whenever I'm hiring, I look for two things: experience and background for my group, which is data analytics. So I'll look for some kind of fit to data and analytics. The other thing is, like I call it, basic consulting skill sets.
Okay.
Like, can I comfortably put you in front of a client?
Okay.
Do you have the basic project experience? Can you coordinate well? Are you disciplined? Are you structured? If I give you a framework, can you understand that and quickly execute? Things like that, right? Like, so basic skill sets, if you have that, along with a diverse background, you should apply for consulting jobs.
Oh, thanks, Jay. I mean, that is like really great, like to hear at least that I can still apply for consulting jobs. Thanks for the suggestions.
Sounds good. Good luck.
Do you mind if I connect you over LinkedIn? I mean, if you are okay with that.
Oh, sure, absolutely. I'll give a blanket invitation to everybody. If you're interested, please connect. If any of what I said interested you, please connect with me. But as with any of these events, please expect a delay. I'm pretty sure after accepting your invitation, there'll be a follow up to ask for time for a conversation. I will make time, but it's going to be over a time period. I'm not going to be able to talk to you all in the next couple of weeks, for example, right? So.
Thank you for that, Jay. I'm going to take a question from the chat. So I'm trying to enter into the data field. I took a course on SQL, and currently I'm taking the Google certificate on data analysis. My educational background is healthcare. I've been applying to jobs. I've even gotten some interviews, but it seems that I don't do well enough on the technical round of the recruitment process. I don't want to wait until I'm better at my technical skills to get a job in data. What will you suggest I do to get my foot in the door while I up my skills?
There are multiple ways you can get your foot in the door. So more and more with these MOOC platforms becoming popular, like Coursera, like EDX, and all these free platforms becoming available. A lot of people are upskilling, right? Which is a good thing. Along with that, you also have a responsibility to differentiate yourself. What's the difference between um, somebody who has taken a Python course online versus you who have done actually classroom Python? Not much in my head, right? So to answer your question about foot in the door, I would say do pet projects like right now. When you're doing these interviews, showcase what you have done, than saying that, hey, I've done an online course, this is what my skill set is. By doing these pet projects, you're learning yourselves, or do volunteer projects. Pick an NGO, do a project for them. There are plenty of startups who are looking for these people who are upskilling, and like volunteer for them. 2 hours a week, 4 hours a week. End of the day, if you're working for a startup, for a for-profit organization, just make sure you get something out of it, meaning a really good acknowledgement of your work, uh, an asset that you can actually showcase. So when you're working for for-profit organizations, you got to be careful that about you're building an asset for that organization, so you eventually have something out of it. So all I'm trying to say is use your time to build something that you can showcase in these interviews. That'll do two things. You're upskilling while you're learning, as well you'll definitely have a better success in your interviews. Does that help?
I hope.
Whoever, yeah, sure. It's an anonymous question, I understand. So the other tidbit that I'll share from my experience is this: actually showing something or making it tangible for the interviewer. That's one of the things I did with that in that coffee chat that I had with the Deloitte partner, right? And where did I learn that? It came from one of the interviews, like informational interviews or networking session that I had with one of the other alumni, right? I was talking to this person. I said, hey, I'm meeting this partner. This is very important for me. And he was like, yeah, you should probably look at this. Look at these areas. This is what Deloitte is doing. Learn about all this. This is what they are trying to do in the analytics space. This is where they're headed. You should probably learn something about like a conversational points about these things. And he said, how are you doing these interviews or networking sessions? I said, yeah, I walk up, blah, blah. I just walk them through a generic thing that I've got, right? I go to the place 10 minutes before the person arrives. I make sure I have my coffee so that I don't spend time in the queue waiting for coffee. I don't spend time queue. I only have 30 minutes. So I get whatever I want. I reserve a table for the other person, wait for them, right? So then he was like, yeah, all good. But do you go there with props? I said, no. What props? So he said, consulting, most of the time you're working on presentations. So why don't you make a presentation about yourselves? So he said, 3 slides, tell them who you are, high level, what your background is, what do you bring to the table for this person? Like, why me? Make those 2, 3 slides, carry that with you like a physical copy and show it to that person. They'll be impressed. I got a job because I did that. So making it tangible is a theme. Like a lot of people can have certification. A lot of people can talk about their experience. If you can actually show something, that's very, very powerful in interviews.
Wow, that was
Okay.
amazing. Amazing piece of insight. Thank you for sharing that. Are there any questions among the audiences? I do have a question on the side, but are there any questions that you would want to ask? Anyone?
I guess I might.
Absolutely. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Jai. Thank you for sharing your journey to us this evening. So my question is, so I know that you schooled in India. So when you moved to Canada and got the job, was there at any point did you have to prove yourself or prove your skills? Having an international input, non-Canadian experience. Was there any point where you had to show that I'm the right fit for this job? Having that international experience.
All the time. That's the short answer to it, right? Like I've had calls with HR or introductory calls with a lot of companies. The first question they ask is, do you have Canadian experience? So the trick to that is you say no without saying no, right? You tell them, do I have Canadian experience? No, but I've done consulting projects. So my consulting
Sorry, we lost you there, Jay. Let's give him a couple of seconds. Are you still
Is
here?
there any Zoom without any network problem?
No, he did mention that he's having some internet issues in his house.
I'm so sorry. I'm back.
No problem.
No worries.
I don't know where I lost you. I was just saying.
You're talking about saying no, but also
Saying
saying no.
yes. Yeah.
Exactly. See where you can bring in transferable skills. Like if you have done volunteer work, if you have done consulting work as part of your education, if you have done internships that you can quote. If you don't have any of that, tell them where you bring those transferable skills, right? Um, you've worked across different cultures. If you have done that in your as part of your older job in your home country, saying I've worked with different, like I've worked with US clients, for example, I worked with European clients. I've had a multicultural background. These are the, like at the core, you're still a good fit. That's what you're trying to show. Explain that, and I would also turn the table to the other person and ask, is there a particular reason or you think or a concern in my experience that you think why you may not be a fit given your background?
And the weather happens to be shitty as well today. That perhaps is contributing to the poor connection that we are witnessing.
Yeah, I think I understand what he's trying to say, but I just wait for him.
Yeah, and I love that approach. I mean, turning the tables and asking, why do you really want a local Canadian experience? What is it that you are specifically looking for with that Canadian experience? Tell that to us, and that would help us better understand, where the gaps really are. If there's no tangible answer to that question that you're asking the interviewer or the hiring manager, then you can still go on talking about your transferable skills, your multicultural background, your client experience across industries, across countries. Those are some of the things that the consulting firms look for, and that is what you're talking to them when you're having that conversation.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
You're back.
That I keep dropping off. Didn't mean to do that. So basically, what I was saying is turn the table, ask them if there is a particular area of concern that you think why you may not be a fit given your background, and ask them the question. Provide those examples of transferable skills that you can bring to the table. I have seen in my background, consulting companies have been more open to hiring international students than industry. That's just my experience.
And is there any particular reason for that, Jay? Would you say, the diversity, the multicultural aspect, but any specific reason that you can pinpoint to, hiring international students versus folks from industry?
Consulting companies are always looking for good talent, right? And then, like consulting companies in general have a larger immigration friendly HR organization. We invest in that knowing that's where the talent pool is. Industry on the other side, they don't know where they wanted tested, tried and tested waters, if you will, right? And they don't have immigration lawyers or mature HR organization to advise them to say, hey, these are the things you have to look for when you're hiring international students. So they're usually okay to piggyback if somebody has already taken that risk, if you will, because the biggest risk is when you're hiring an international student, you hire somebody who don't have a proper status in Canada, right? And this person doesn't fit in. The second risk is they don't fit in with the culture of the company. I didn't mean to say Canadian culture. So if somebody has already tested it for you, you're like, okay, yeah, less risk. Let me just hire somebody who has Canadian experience, right? That's the reason that I can think of. Maybe there are more. Usually when people are with work visa, I've seen people sometimes don't extend it on time. So there is things that come with it, right? So I've also seen companies that have specifically asked for, hey, do you have a PR?
Absolutely.
Right? So,
yeah, makes sense. All right, thank you for that. Other
you.
questions?
Thank you, Jai. Thank you for answering the question.
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Go ahead, Shruti.
Yeah, Jai, where you mentioned, I really like that point where you said like you used to go with a presentation which would tell, the person like who you are, what you do, and why me. So can you talk a little more about that? So when you talk about why me, so did you used to tailor it as per the job description, or you used to come up with, like specific, like out of the box ideas? How did you do that? How you used to do that?
Um, I'll tell you two things, how I did that, and the person who actually suggested this to me, he did it slightly differently, right? The short answer to your question is yes, of course. You understand, first question you ask yourself before putting such a presentation is, what is this person looking for? If it's an interview, it's even structured. You know exactly what the other person is looking for because there is a job description, right? If not, you're playing a guess game, but you should do your research to understand, hey, can this person, like I don't carry props to every single information interview that I go to, right? If you're going into a casual networking session, don't make it super formal by carrying such things, right? But there is a 70 to 80% chance this person can give me a job, right? And this idea, the person who gave me was, if you hear where it came from, it's very unique, right? This person had a problem talking about himself. Like when somebody asks him, hey, tell me about yourself, he had a real problem explaining or bragging about himself. He didn't like it. That's not his nature. He'd answer in like 2 sentences and stop. That was his problem. And he was not able to sell his profile. He had like fantastic backgrounds. So somebody suggested to him, or he learned something online to say, take something to show that, so that you show that and talk to a picture, than you're talking, facing somebody and talking about it. So for example, this guy had amazing pictures of one of the largest, working in one of the largest shop floors in Asia. So you take that picture, and he had a picture taken in front of that. He had worked in some of the biggest oil rigs where he had pictures taken in front of the oil rigs, and he had that saying, hey, this was one of the biggest operations and this is the role that I played. It was easy for him to point to a picture and talk to his experience than actually talking to a person, facing somebody, right? So that's where the idea came from. And he told me this. So this is another, I want to tie this back to a question that was asked earlier about, um, it is hard for me to talk to strangers, right? Like this is where Facebook was born. You post pictures and you talk about yourself. You're always, or you talk about somebody else's experience. So networking is much easier if you just don't focus on jobs and make it interesting by talking about interesting things that has happened in your life, and you ask others about interesting things that has happened in their life. So not necessarily have to be a job all the time. So my question to this person, he was an alumni, by the way. So it had a job undertone. I told him, hey, I'm going to interviews. What are some of the techniques that you've used? I know for a fact this guy is much junior. He just started his career 1 year before I did. So he's not going to be able to give me a job, but he gave me a tool that got me a job eventually. Some people are going to give you an introduction that'll give you a job, that'll eventually get you a job. So not everybody is going to get you a job, but they'll somehow give you some tools, introduction, something that'll help you eventually land in a job. Right? So if you know ahead of time somebody's not going to be, is not an employer, you ask these kind of questions. Hey, how did you do your job? Like, however you guys are asking me. Those are conversation starters too.
Yeah. Thanks, Jay. That answered my question.
Sounds good.
Amazing. Any other questions? We have last couple of minutes. Yes, Aswad, go.
Yeah, I have one question. So, Jay, what are some innovative ways where people have kept in touch with you? Many people would have networked with you. because that is one thing that I struggle with. Making the first connection is always easy, but how do you make that second point, and like by not being, say, too pushy, how do you, what are some innovative ways that I've seen over the years?
Yeah. So goes back to, I mean, I can only draw from my experience. There are plenty of innovative ways of doing this. So I'll give you a couple of things I learned over the. So at Queens, they tell you, hey, have a template, reach out to people who have been through this process so they understand what you're reaching out for. That has worked charms for me. I would do the same to somebody who's following my footsteps, right? For some people, you have to call out that common connection. Hey, I'm a fellow this, um, looking for this, and I found your profile, and I give a couple of compliments. Compliments are free. Hey, you have an impressive profile. I found this particular. The more specific you make it, the more success you'll have. This particular profile, this is great, and I've been there too. Can we talk? Right? That like pique their interest instead of sending a template to everybody. That's so for safer network, you can set the template, but when you're going more and more towards a stranger people, when you're reaching out, has to be more customized for call out a particular experience. Hey, we met in this particular thing. Hey, we both were in this conference together. Hey, we both seems to have gone to the same school. We both seems to be living not too far from each other. Hey, we both have worked for IBM, whatever that could be, right? If you or call out a particular experience. Hey, I see that you've subscribed to this particular LinkedIn channel too. Hey, I see that you're going through an upskilling path too. I saw some of your posts. Posts, people post on LinkedIn to grab attention. So if you show that it has grabbed your attention, it could be for a cause. They posted something about a particular cause. You say that, hey, this is a noble cause you're following. Great. So acknowledge something they've done. Show that you've done a little more research than a common person. That would give you a lot more success, right? And one other thing that I've done in the past is actually getting people's email IDs. There is a pattern to email IDs. You know that corporate email IDs. It's usually first letter of your first name and your last name at some company, or first name dot last name at, like, with a little bit of research, you can understand. Say for example, somebody your target company is CIBC. Understanding how CIBC's email works is very easy to understand, right? It could be first name or last name at cibc.com or cibc.ca or whatever. So then you do some research on LinkedIn, understand some of your persons of interest, and then when you get to a point where this person can actually talk, like this is the group that I want to talk to, then this person works for that group. Then you write a targeted email to that person, 4 or 5 lines, explaining why you want to talk to that person, what's in it for you, what's in it for the other person. Send that. There is 90% chance the other person will talk to you.
Right. And just piling on, to what we've already mentioned, Jay, I think, one of the things that I like to do is, for example, this, the mentor-mentee relationship that I have set monthly touch points with her. And, what we've spoken about is that, we will take one Harvard Business Review article on talent management and we will dissect it. She will probably speak for it and I will speak against it, and we will have a 1-hour conversation on it. So that's my innovative way of, keeping in touch with her and talking about something that's, close to both our hearts. And, there could be, plenty others like Jay mentioned. You just have to find something that works for you and works for the other person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, like whatever I touched on could be like 1 or 2% of the strategies that are out there. So there is a question in the chat. That could be a quick one. How do I answer the question of weakness? This is one of the popular questions, and everybody. So I'll start with what you shouldn't answer. for that question. Oh, hard work is my bad habit. I work 20 hours a day. People are going to throw you out of the interview next minute. You come out as a really, really, um, like sometimes I would say borderline stupid. This question has been is being asked for almost 20, 30, if not 50 years now. If you keep answering with the same question, you've not even done your basic research. You're not genuine. You're like a lot of other things, right? So first, be honest. If you actually first think about an actual weakness you have and acknowledge that. If you're working on it to fix the weakness, that'll be great. And that's where you leave. If you've actually fixed it, if there is an actual story that you can tell to say this particular weakness, it was stopping me. Like I have this habit of not waking up on time in the mornings. And this is the impact that it had on my career or my studies or whatever that is that caused this much damage. And I fixed it like 90% now. This is the success I've had with it. I'm still working on it is a powerful story. So weakness question, be honest.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Jay. Wish, I see your hand is up. Please go ahead and ask the question.
Hey, thanks, Abhishek. And hi, Jay, thank you for all the valuable points. I had a query about the One Analytics team at PwC. Like, how does a typical project team looks like? What are the kind of roles that a project team has, and what is the project management rules that you have in a One Analytics team? And is it necessary for a project management role to have an analytics background? These are my questions.
Okay, Wish, again, I'm going to start with the answer of it depends. So consulting companies don't have a standard structure for all the initiatives. It depends on the problem that we're trying to solve. And it doesn't always contain all One Analytics people. Even if it's an analytics problem we're trying to solve, it could have other skill sets that are required, right? There was an early question about handover, sustaining the solution that we build, or knowledge transfer. If I kind of touched on upskilling as well. So for upskilling, transferring knowledge, sometimes it could be about change management too. It could be the problem could involve a particular skill set about operations. It could have an industry expert requirement. So the size of the team, the requirements for the team depends very, very widely. We would try to leverage expertise that you've got in the firm from different teams. So we draw from all of those expertise. Like I can give you an example, but that example is not going to hold good for the next project that I'll do. So for example, there is like I spoke about a project that we're doing where there is a standing up of a platform, and then there is 10 use cases, right? So for that standing up of a platform, we figured early on there was a streaming analytics requirement. So in Canada, we kind of figured that we don't have a skill set who has streaming analytics and he's available. Like everybody's busy. People who are available, we didn't have the person who can do streaming analytics. So what do? We reached out to our firm in the US. Hey, we have this requirement. Do you have anybody? So we formed a team with one of the US folks. It's not even called One Analytics in US. They have a different structure altogether. And then out of the 10 use cases, the pilot use cases that you're building, AI use cases, each use case requires different skill sets. One of them requires a financial services risk modeling skill set. We brought an industry expert to fill in on that position. So each of them had different, there is a text analytics requirement. So we needed an expert with text analytics. There was a social media data expert we required. So each use case, we're billing that person for that use case and off you go. So it's a pod structure, it's a fluid team. It's not going to be like 3-person team that's going to deliver it end to end.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Thanks, Jay.
Okay, sounds good.
Amazing. In light of the time that we, can have one last question, if anyone has any. No? All right. So I'm going to take this moment to sum it up and thank Jay for his valuable time. But here are my top takeaways from the discussion that we've had with Jay, in no particular order. So don't show desperation to the person that you're reaching out to. Not everyone is going to get you a job, but they might share the tools, references that probably will help you get a job. So keep networking. On Canadian experience, on being asked for Canadian experience, learn to say no without really saying no. Talk about your transferable skills, your multicultural background, the client experiences. Those are things that are going to be a good substitute for that Canadian experience that people are looking for. Do pet projects, volunteer projects, make it tangible to the interviewer. Go to the informational interviews with props wherever possible. 3 slides, like Jay mentioned, who you are, what do you bring to the table, and what is it that you really want. Specifically on case interviews and case prep, focus on the methodology, the structure, and the approach. That is more important than the final answer. And then finally on soft skills, a lot of good pointers given and shared by Jay, that you don't have to be self-centric. You have to be polite. Do not interrupt people when you're having a conversation. And then the most important takeaway, I think, for us and for me, is that we cannot really benefit from every single conversation that we have with people, right? And that, I think, that's very important for us to keep in mind when we are reaching out to people and having those conversations. So those are my biggest takeaways. Jay, did you want to say anything? I can see your screen flashing. No. Are you here? Oh, he left us for a couple of seconds. All right, so I'll have to wait to thank him for his time. But in the meantime, thank you, everyone. All of you have been wonderful, wonderful participants. Thank you for making this session really, really interactive and participative. It was, wonderful having you here, asking all the wonderful questions. I said wonderful a lot of times, but are you back, Jay?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Sorry, a couple of parting words.
Hello? Are you here?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Thanks a lot for everybody for listening, me rambling for an hour and a half. And thank you so much for the Fresh Start Hub team. Abhishek, to you as well for moderating, making it more of a discussion than having it a one-way conversation. And really appreciate you jumping in with your insights. And I really, really apologize for the network issues that we are having today.
Absolutely no worries, but thank you so much, Jay, for your 90 minutes of your time and for sharing those valuable insights, and more than that, your valuable experiences that are going to help us a lot when we plan out our career transition in the future. So thank you so much for the time and the conversation, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jay, for your support. Thank you so much. And for everyone, please, where the secret sauce is in the implementation. So I would strongly encourage you to please implement what Jay has said. If you consume all this information without implementation, it's just like a waste of time. And you've invested 1 hour, 30 minutes of your time to this. And also, like I read recently that every mentor wants their mentee to succeed. And one thing I can tell you from the conversation today is that Jay is genuinely committed to every participant's success, because some of the insights he shared today, I am also hearing it for the first time. I like the piece of you putting together a deck. It was very, very genuine. It was practical. It was real. So please implement the what he has shared. And also, it's not just one and done for us at the Fresh Start Hub. we want to help you along the whole journey. So please feel free to utilize all our resources. They are absolutely free at no cost to you. Feel free to book any of us for a career chat if you want. Shruti, I've had a couple of conversations with Shruti, and she can attest to that. Does Shruti want to say one or two things to participants about our conversation?
Yeah, so I would say that I had a really, informative and a really wonderful 2 sessions with, David. Before, like, I came with a resume, which was something that nobody would be able to understand, and the valuable feedbacks he gave, and the tips and the tricks he gave, like how I can benefit, he talks about, like working for an NGOs. If you don't have a Canadian experience, you can always have, those volunteering opportunities that you can reach out to and still build up on that. And it was really amazing the way Fresh Start Hub is, like posting. If you even follow the post that Fresh Start Hubs give you, it is, related to productivity and a lot of things that you can inculcate in your life. And I feel that this Fresh Start Hub is doing a lot for the newcomers. And if you're a person who can take the most of it out of it, you can, please. And please do get in touch with all, like the mentors over here, if you can get to, in terms of, like resume, career discussions. I think like that is very helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shruti. Shumaya, do you want to say something? I thought I saw
I
your
just
hand up.
want to say, I just want to add that, sorry, my internet connection is not good, so I'm off video. So I just want to say thank you so much, Jai, and thank you so much, Fresh Start Hub. I want to add that I'm a woman, I'm an international student, I'm a person of visible minority. So at first, like before joining all these sessions, I didn't have any confidence. David, I shared with you earlier. And slowly by slowly, I'm gaining that confidence that yes, I will be having a very good future, a very good career. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sumaya,
Sumaya.
Sorry, I did not mean to jump back in, but that's one thing you should not be worried about. That's the first thing you need to shed. Like there could be other insecurities about talking to a stranger, networking, blah, blah, but you are in a safe place. There could be people who are discriminating, but you shouldn't worry about them. Keep marching forward.
Thank you, Jai.
Thank you so
Yesterday
much.
you wanted to say something, and
Yes,
then we'll round up.
Yes, I was gonna say I haven't mentioned this to Abhishek, but I had a session with Abhishek earlier. I don't know if you can remember. He helped me with my resume, and I kind of got well, not a job, but yes, an opportunity with KPMG. So I'm just trying to encourage everyone here on this platform. Reach out to them, reach out to people, reach out to the Fresh Start Hub. They have tons of resources on the website. Really, really helpful. Abhishek, thank you so much. I'm sure I haven't mentioned this to him because it just happened, but yes. Thank you so much, Abhishek.
That's lovely to hear, Yatunde. Lovely. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate it. And thank you, David, and the Fresh Start team. You guys are doing amazing and awesome things. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So interestingly, we didn't plan this to all the 3 people that spoke. You can ask them, they can attest to that. We never had the conversation. I just thought I should bring that up. So if you're not yet a member of the community, we encourage you to be a member, to be a part of it. Please, when you see something that is amazing, please share it with your friends, share it with people in your network. We love to have them. And also we are launching something very soon. We are launching a job board in the next few weeks, few days. So watch out for that, and we'll be communicating that to members of our community first. We have some organizations that have given us jobs, so we're working on that, but you'll be hearing from us shortly. So we want to say thank you to you. Thank you, Jai. Thank you to everyone that is a part of this. And we are committed and we are genuinely invested in your success. So at any point, don't feel like any question is bad, and don't feel like you're overwhelming us. We'll be more than happy to help you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Abhishek, for moderating this session effectively. And I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Have a lovely evening, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you all.
Jai.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Take care.